Hi, my name is Henry Vani, and today I will be talking about my population, the African American community, their views and thoughts on therapy, and many more important facts. But before we start, I want to give you a little bit of a roadmap of how I'm going to conduct my or present my informations. First, I want to start with the introduction, explaining and talking about my community so that the information that I present isn't without context and that you aren't lost in the information that will be given. Then I will talk about the intervention implemented for this specific community, the strengths and its limitations of it. Then I will talk about the therapeutic alliance for this specific community I chose, CBT, which is also known as cognitive behavioral therapy, as the theoretical orientation of choice. And the specific therapeutic alliance here is working alliance, which I will explain and talk about more later. Then I will move on to the multicultural factors, how CBT implements them, the flaws of CBT, and then finally I will talk about the cultural competence, explaining how I, as a therapist, can maintain cultural competence and be more informed myself. Okay, so let's talk about the population at hand, which is the African American community. It is no surprise to anyone, or at least that knows about American history, that back in the early part of American history, slavery and racial discrimination was at large. Black people and people of color faced many racial discrimination and hate just simply for their color. And although it is not as bad as it once were, it still is a problem and an issue that many people of color face, especially black people, or at least, including black people. Um, yeah, and because of that racial issue back in early American history, there's a lack of trust towards authorities and even resources such as therapy. It has caused the community to feel as though they won't get the same kind of care that their counterparts would. Don't feel like the goal of the authorities and the therapist is to help them, but rather they're just there to do their job, which again has which again is an issue that has been that the community has been facing. Now, regarding the intervention implemented for this community, I looked at a specific study that was conducted by Balo, um, and they used the interpretive phenom- phenomenological analysis, also known as IPA. And what IPA does is they examine specific lives, specific situation, how one would react towards this and that. And the reason I chose this is because though one person may not tell the whole story, it's important to look at even just one person because it could be how many other people feel and react if they were in the same situation. And yeah, so that's why I decided to look at that study. And what I found out about the study, the intervention is that there's a lot of good strengths and limitations to it, or there's a lot of good strengths, but also a couple bad limitations. One strength that I found in this study is that if it really focuses on a specific population, specific person, um, due to the reason that I explained earlier, how like even one person can get you to an idea of what how many others that are like them might feel and react to certain things. And so that is what that is what I identified as a strength of this intervention. But there's also limitations to this. For example, confounding variables. In statistic, confounding variable is also known as a variable in um which is a variable that causes the outcome of something without it being the intention, without that being without that being the intention. So, for example, if you have one independent variable and then a dependent variable, the confounding variable is kind of like the the extra factor that changes the outcome of what happens between the independent variable and dependent variable. And so with that, you could like mistaken the reason that something happened for something else. And so though the strength of it being that it focuses on specific population, its limitation is also a huge problem because again you could mistake uh, the reason for something with something else. And so that is an issue slash a limitation that I found for this intervention. Aside from that, I want to talk about CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy. It is a type of therapy where clients are expected to change their thoughts and their actions. And one of the therapeutic alliances implemented in CBT is working alliance. And working alliance is when the therapist is greatly involved. So that means they're actively listening and giving feedbacks. They're building a extremely, well, not extremely, but a very personal relationship with their client so that they can um, help their clients achieve better mental health. And yeah, that's a type of therapeutic alliance that I noticed and have found being used for CBT. Regarding the multicultural factors when it comes to CBT is that they are or it is culturally sensitive. However, there's also a bit of an issue with it because while it does um, consider the beliefs and cultural differences of others, it isn't able to be of use to those that have disorders such as personality disorder. Um, and the reason that CBT can't help those that have disorders such as personality disorders because CBT emphasizes self help. And to add my personal opinion to that, self help really doesn't make sense in general because you can't be the solution to your own problem if you are the problem. Um, like, for example, when you have trouble doing homework, you don't go to yourself when you need help, you go to a teacher. So I just think that's one of the reason why like CBT is very flawed because like it greatly emphasizes self-help, which does not make sense. If self-help was a thing or like truly useful, therapy, I feel like wouldn't be a thing. And so that's a huge flaw that I notice when it comes to CBT, despite it being culturally sensitive and aware of others' belief and values. And finally, cultural competency. what I would do as a therapist to maintain cultural competency or to gain cultural competency is I would like to inform myself. So watch different movies, listen to music, talk to the type of communities that I'm interested in doing therapy for, and like just being engaged in like a variety of things that are different from what I'm used to. So even like snacks, for example, like you know, snacks are different from what I usually eat. I think it would be important to inform myself about those things. And then I would make sure that I let my clients know that I appreciate their unique background, that that I that their unique background is of value, that just because they may be different from me doesn't mean that they're lesser or better than me, but that they're simply just different. So I let them know that I appreciate them for who they are and for their unique background. And yeah, that is the end of my presentation.